Great. Okay, so welcome to the Homeschooling Conference. I'm Julie Lindsay, and this is my presentation to flatten your learning. I believe, yes, I've done the recording. I believe we can put our position on the map here. So please, on the left-hand side of the whiteboard, second from the top, there's a thing you can click and you can grab a smiley face, or you can grab a star and put your position. I'm actually right over here in Australia. I'm on the east coast of Australia at the moment. It is actually 11 a.m. in the morning. So if you would like to add your position to the map, and that's a great map actually. I think that's one of the best maps I've seen. And if you're able to grab that star or whatever, or just make a mark on the map, that would be great, and I'm just there. And if you can't put on the map, that's fine. How about you put in the chat? Thanks, Dottie, for leading the way. I'm actually at Ocean Shores, New South Wales, Australia, and it's 11 a.m. here. And it's great to see an audience in the room. So let's do that while I keep moving on with this presentation. Great. Slides here. Okay, so, oh, New Zealand. Yes, Debs, I think you're on... maybe you're on iPad. No, you're not. You know, that's fine. That's great to see you putting it in the chat. Okay, so this presentation is Flatten Your Learning, and you know, the use of technology to connect and go global. So I've got quite a few slides to share with you. This is a little bit of information about me. Learningconfluence.com is my website, and you'll find lots about me there. So I'm just going to keep moving through. I'll pause at certain points, but please throw questions or comments into the chat. I will come to the questions almost immediately. I'm happy to be interrupted, that's fine. If you want to put some things into the chat there and just make observations. Oh, sorry, didn't I load? Oh, you're right. Thank you, Velocia. Sorry about that. Yes, it's all been turned off, hasn't it? I hadn't realised that. Never mind. I've got where you are from the chat window, so thanks for that. You are allowed to, so you're allowed to chat, and you're allowed to put your hand up, aren't you? Which I might ask you to do later on. That's okay. Yes. Okay. Thanks for that. Good. I'm actually quite experienced with Blackboard. I just forgot that you didn't have permissions. Right. Okay. Let's keep moving on. All right. Oh, 3 parts. Oh, goodness, that slide wasn't fixed, was it? Never mind. I've actually got 3 parts plus 2 4 parts. Never mind. We've got a few parts to this presentation, looking at what is connected learning, why go global, the recipe for flat learning, planning a collaboration. So I realise this is a homeschooling conference, and I'm relatively new to homeschooling, I must admit, but I'm very keen to share this information with you, to share what we've been doing with global collaboration and see where the synergies might be in terms of homeschooling. And I'd also like to introduce the Flat Classroom to you briefly and the work that we do at the end of this presentation. So sorry about the number ordering there. Okay, so let's have a look. Welcome to people who are just coming into the room. I'm launching into the presentation, but please throw into the chat window where you're from and what time it is. And please throw comments and questions as I go through. You're most welcome to do that. So what is connected learning? And of course, that's a whole pile of text. We're looking at attitudes, behaviours, 21st century, networks, etc., etc. If we look at it like this, it might make a bit more sense. Of course, connected learning is about communities. It's about resources. It's about networking, professional development, publishing, etc. Technology is there as well. So it's actually connecting ourselves and connecting the people we learn with and from to other people. And then I'm going to ask the question, what is flat learning? So we've got connected learning, and then this whole idea of flat learning goes hand in hand with this, because you might have heard of connected learning, you may not have heard of this whole idea, concept, practice of flat learning. And once again, a whole pile of text, working relationship between all learners, no real hierarchy for learning, Flat Classroom connects and engages with multiple audiences, resources, tools, etc. Scaffolded by the efficient use of a variety of tools, Web 2.0 tools, personal learning network, personal learning, professional learning community. And if we look at it as a Wordle, I'm using a tool called Wordle.com, in case you're not familiar with that, to create these images. And this shows us, once again, it's about the learning, but it's also about the tools to an extent, because we're scaffolding the learning with technology to make those connections. And it's collaborative and etc. Okay, so flat learning is the use of technology to virtually eliminate the physical walls of the classroom, or to physically, to eliminate the physical walls of wherever you are learning, whether it be at home or in the classroom. Of course, the home is a classroom at the time. It's also about, flat learning is also about bringing the world in to where you're learning and opening the classroom, the learning environment, to the world. So it's what we call flattening the classroom walls, so that learning is transparent and that opportunities and experiences and different influences and resources are brought into the learning environment. So, it's going beyond the basic textbook. Hi, Jackie. Great to see you in here. Thanks for coming in. So flat learning is about discovery and engagement with others who are not in your physical space. So it's setting up experiences and opportunities to engage and go beyond engagement, but also to collaborate with people who are not physically in front of you. And I think, in terms of homeschooling, I think it's extremely relevant to understand this and to know the strategies to be able to affect this. Thanks, Jackie. Zumba. I keep missing the Zumba class here. I'm just always in front of the computer at the moment. Anyway, let's keep going. Okay, so why is this important? Connected and flat learning is important because it connects learners around the world, okay? And it really does impact the context in which we learn. So if we're learning from a set of resources, say, for example, a textbook, a series of textbooks, or we're learning from a series of curriculum packages, etc., I mean, that's fine, but where, to build in relevance, to build in current material, you really need to go flat, and to build in further engagement and excitement and to learn more about the world, it's really important that you understand about how to be connected and flat. And it's a pedagogy supported by technology. So I'm really talking about, this is why I framed this presentation for this conference in terms of focusing on not just the pedagogy, but the understanding that it's the technology that supports this. And it's important to be able to use the tools. So technology-enabled collaboration that supports flat learning. Just a couple of images from some live workshops that we've run recently. The one on the left is actually the Flat Classroom conference we ran in Japan, and the boy in the front is holding up an iPad. He's actually using a tool called Ustream, and he's streaming the workshop, the student teams collaborating, to the world, so that other people who are not in Japan at the time can actually see the learning and interact with the learning as well. So let's have a look. Why would we bother to try and do global collaboration with our students or with our learners? And these are some of the reasons that I've chosen. In terms of global competency, you hear a lot about that these days, and I've given a brief definition there, which I won't read out. You can see that. Very important to understand. How to communicate with people, different attitudes and habits of learning of others around the world as well, so that you can blend more easily and make the most of those learning opportunities. International mindedness, of course. The International Baccalaureate use this phrase quite often, if you're familiar with them. Cultural awareness, and this word globalization, which is a word that Thomas Friedman uses amongst others, which, think global and act local. So to understand the global context, to be able to affect change in your local community or local environment is very important as well. So when we define the global collaborative classroom, we're looking at a classroom that is connected, that is able to, through that connection, engage with multiple audiences. It also engages with diverse resources and tools, and therefore creates authentic collaborative learning outcomes. And of course, it is standards-based. You can look at the 21st Century Skills Standards and the ISTE standards in terms of collaboration and communication. But of course there are challenges. The challenges of embedding global collaboration into what you do on an everyday or every week basis as a learner. One of the challenges, of course, is going beyond the wow, and there's nothing more exciting than doing a Skype call with someone in a different part of the world. But you need to take that excitement and build it into something that is curriculum, valuable in terms of the curriculum, and that engages learners and leaders, and is not just sort of a one-off event that happens that makes you go global, but moves you into really shifting traditional pedagogies to embed global collaboration. And at the same time, I think one of the challenges is to have realistic expectations that perhaps not every global collaboration that you plan will work. Collaboration in itself means that there are two people on either side of the world or either side of the country who are willing to commit to the collaboration. Sometimes things happen and people are not able to necessarily follow through or finish off, etc. So you need to have realistic expectations and move into different projects, etc., to make things work. Okay, so we talked about connected learning, flat learning, but flat learning goes beyond merely connecting. And I do say this, and it sounds fairly sort of lofty, but flat learning can change the world as we know it, local and global. Making these authentic connections can actually change how we perceive the world, of course, and what we do in the world to affect positive change. And connection flat learning is now; it's not in the future. And then, of course, okay, how do we do this? How do we go flat? So I'm going to offer today a recipe for you. And there are 3 ingredients in this recipe to flatten your learning. So let's have a look at these. So the first ingredient is connection. So we've been talking about connected learning, but what does that mean? Making these connections. And really, connected learning is a habit. It's a learning habit, or habitude is another word that is around at the moment. And I love this quote from C.S. Lewis. The next best thing to being wise oneself is to live in a circle of those who are. So, if you don't know something, find someone out there who does know it that you can learn from. And, of course, you can exchange information. So connect yourself. Use your daily workflow. Welcome to people who have just come into the room. Well, I welcome you to put where you are at the moment and what time it is, etc. And it's great to see you. So connect yourself with your daily workflow. Think about, what do you do each day? Do you answer email? Do you check and read blogs? Do you belong to any mailing lists? Do you tweet using Twitter and develop a network through that? So think about how you connect yourself, and therefore how you connect the people that are learners in your environment. In terms of the homeschooling environment, what does the household do? What sort of connection strategies are happening with the students and the teachers, the supervisors, etc. in that environment. And of course the use of pull technologies, what we call pull technologies, is important to be able to pull the information to you, because really we face every day information overload, and it's a reality, but we need to filter that information and pull the information to us that's important to us and discard the rest, because we physically cannot read and respond to every piece of information that comes to us each day. It's just impossible. So working out, how you set up an RSS reader, how you use social bookmarking is a great tool, and how you use other tools that bring information to you, Facebook, Instagram, for example, photo sites like Flickr. So that needs a lot of consideration, and everybody has their own favourite set of tools. So there's not necessarily one formula, but the important thing is that you are doing something. You are using something to bring the information to you. I like using Twitter. That's one of my favourite tools, and I've developed quite a strong personal learning network through the use of Twitter. @Tamwall is one of our flat classroom teachers based in Italy at the moment. That's Tamara. And she tweeted this a few months ago: the greatest changes of our future will not be the technology, but the power of people as they connect. So once again, we need to, of course, look at the technology and how we set it up and how we use it to support what we need. But really, it's the power of people as they connect that is going to be the real change maker, and is the real change maker now. And this is the message from me to you, to instill this into the students that we have in our care, and instill this this thought that they can be change makers through connections. This whole idea of a teacherpreneur and being able to bring opportunities into the learning environment or into the classroom. So, and the fact that teacherpreneurs aren't renegades. I think in some schools, teachers who go beyond the box, step outside of the box, are often considered renegades. But these days we call them connectors, and another word is a teacherpreneur. And of course, connection, making these virtual connections as we are now, and that's a picture from our Flat Classroom conference in Beijing. That teacher there he actually brought some students to the conference, but he was Skyping with his school back in, it was another town in China. There are no towns in China, they're all cities. Anyway, he was showing what was going on at the conference through a Skype call and just moving his computer around as he did that. So just a wonderful snapshot there of virtual connections being made. And then of course virtual participation. As you're doing now, you can actually be sitting in your own house participating in this conference, and there are many conferences like this now, many opportunities, and we provide them actually through Flat Classroom. This is an example. On the left, two of my students from Beijing who were holding the camera up, streaming the presentations at the conference or what was happening. And on the right, that's actually my daughter, who was sitting at home participating in the Flat Classroom conference in Japan. And she was one of the virtual participants who interacted with the participants, and the virtual participants actually put together a complete video to share their experiences as virtual participants to a live conference. Connection taxonomy, I might just quickly explain this in terms of different types of connections. Connecting within your own learning environment or within your classroom. How do you do that? Are you connecting through a blog, etc., through the use of Edmodo or Twitter? And then how do you, when you get to level 2, how do you connect with people down the street? It might be another school down the street or another institution, etc. And then how do you start to move towards managed global connections? And then, of course, student-managed connections and student-to-student connections. So we've developed this taxonomy that perhaps is a little difficult to understand just by looking at it for a couple of minutes, but it's really every one of these levels is relevant, but really we're looking at this sort of higher order thinking where the students, perhaps the older students, maybe not necessarily that older, can manage the global connections themselves and the global projects. Okay, but connection is not enough. So we've sorted out our ways that we connect with the world, but it's only the first step. It's only the first ingredient in the recipe of going flat. So citizenship is what I consider to be the next important ingredient. And we're talking about digital identity. Who are you as a digital citizen? Who are our students? How can we explain this and encourage our students to research this and to understand their own digital footprint and how they present themselves as learners in an online environment? And this is so important. It's one thing to move into an online learning environment. It's another thing to know how to learn. And this is going beyond the social. Just an example of a digital citizenship model where, of course, you need to be aware of safety, privacy, copyright, legal, literacy and fluency, of course, but also these areas of awareness in terms of, I'm going straight out to the far one there, the global context. What sort of global awareness do we need to encourage our learners to be good digital citizenships? I mean, how do you connect and learn from and with a person in a different part of the world that has a totally different culture to your own? And this is an important part of being a digital citizen now. Oh, thanks Jackie. Yeah. So think about that: global, cultural, and of course social, individual, and technical. So that all of these areas of awareness need to be considered when you talk about digital citizenship and embracing the world, and not starting global collaborations with perhaps preset ideas in terms of stereotypes, but learning more from the people that you connect with. And of course, citizenship, is about global awareness and impact. The impact that you will have on other people, and the impact that they will have on you, and the impact that you will have on the world as you create things with other people, and knowing how to do that in a safe and collaborative way. Global competency, we've talked about that already. Global confidence, of course. And okay, step 3, ingredient number 3 to flatten your classroom or to flatten your learning is collaboration. And we often say, if collaboration is a needed and required 21st century skill, which it is, it's in the standards, it's across many discipline and organisational standards, including ISTE in 21st century skills, as I've mentioned already. So as educators or as supervisors of learners, etc., we need to not only teach it, but employ and model it as well. Okay, so it's important to understand what it means to be collaborative and how you be collaborative. And I'm talking particularly, of course, in a flat learning environment where we're scaffolding this with technology. And of course, we're talking about communication to set up the collaboration. And there are 2 types of communication to sustain a global project or global collaboration. And we've got synchronous and asynchronous. Now, at the moment, of course, we're in a synchronous virtual classroom. We're doing this in real time. And that's, of course, how the traditional classroom works. And, of course, you're separated by location and you're separated by time. As I said, it's now nearly 11:30 a.m. on a Saturday morning here on East Coast Australia. I know probably most of my audience, except for one. One is you, Debs, I think, is in New Zealand. And the rest of you, I think, are in the USA. So it's actually Friday afternoon, still Friday evening for you. But, we can get over this separation. Thanks, Jackie, 7:30 p.m. Great timing. We can get over this separation by embracing this sort of flat classroom, flat learning idea and unifying ourselves through the internet and through tools. And this involves asynchronous communication tools, such as a discussion forum, such as a blog, such as a learning management system. And once again, it's a skill. It's a skill to be able to use a virtual classroom like this, to be able to use Skype. It's a skill to be able to use asynchronous communication tools as well. And I think it's because our students are relatively fluent with digital tools, sometimes I think people assume that they know how to conduct themselves and to use these tools automatically, where in fact, they don't. They don't really know. Same as we don't know. I didn't know how to use Blackboard until I learned how to use it the first time. I didn't know how to use Skype until I actually got used to it. So once again, as teachers, as people who supervise learners, we do need to teach these skills and to talk about the differences between synchronous and asynchronous. Welcome to people who have just joined me. Great to see you here. It'd be great if you could put your location in the chat window there. Thank you. Okay, this whole sort of communication and moving towards collaboration idea means that we need to think about our online existence. And there's a little cartoon here, so it's a little hard to see, isn't it? But basically the girl on the right is saying, I can prove that you do not exist in the world. And the boy on the left is saying, so she says, do you answer your emails, have a Facebook page, instant message, blog, cell phone? And he says, no, but you can see me, can't you? And of course, she walks out of the room and she can't see him anymore. So, when you're face-to-face, that's fine. You can see people. And when you're doing synchronous communication, you can hear and talk, etc. But when we leave, when I close this meeting and we go away, how are we going to find each other again? And how are we going to set up those communications and to lead us to collaborations? So actually having an online existence, welcome California and Minnesota, great to see you. So actually having an online existence is really important, and knowing how to respond and communicate with people is really important as well. And I've had students, in the past who have been in global projects who just haven't responded to others. And, I've had the partners and the teachers saying, this student's not responding, and I'll say to them, why aren't you responding? And they'll say, well, I've been reading everything. But I said, they can't see that you're reading it. They don't know who you are, or what you're doing, unless you actually respond in the discussion or comment on the blog post, etc., or add something to the wiki. You need to be visibly present in an online mode to exist. Just a word about social versus educational, and this is an image of our Flat Classroom conference in Qatar, which isn't directly relevant to this point, but anyway, it's a nice image to look at. Oh, you're the silent type, okay. And that's fine. It's good to lurk as well. We all lurk. That's fine, Velocia, no problem at all. But if you want to actually, communicate and collaborate, you do have to sort of be there at times, of course. Okay, so this whole idea of social versus educational, it's important to understand the difference. And often, people like to have their social spaces and then have different educational spaces. And I heard recently, and I've heard this from a couple of people, that young people, teenagers, are perhaps starting to move away from Facebook because teachers and other people are starting to invade it and set up Facebook pages for their class, etc., etc. And I think people start to draw the line and say, well, this is really our social space. We go to Facebook to be social. We don't necessarily want to go to Facebook to be learners. And the lines are being blurred to an extent. So you need to sort of work that out. We're all trying to work that out at the moment. But the important thing is that all of us need to understand that, yes, we can be very sociable online and have our Facebook pages and respond to others and talk about our families or whatever we want to talk about, and perhaps say things that don't mix in with our professional life necessarily, but then we need to be able to revert very quickly to our professional, put our professional learning hat on and know when it's appropriate to be a professional learner in an online capacity. So that's an important message to get across. Collaboration takes the development of techno-personal skills. This is an example of some pictures of synchronous. The girl on the left is actually at a workshop we were running in India, and one of her team members is in Japan, and that you can see that boy, the image on the screen there. He was actually in Japan connecting with her via Skype, and they collaborated like that for about 4 hours that day. And of course, techno-personal skills, we need to develop these asynchronous skills. This is actually a screenshot of a wiki. Oh, thanks, Jackie. Great. Excellent. Everyone can click on that link and have a look at what I was talking about. Yeah, good. Asynchronous wiki work where these are actually two teachers setting up this page, leaving messages for each other and saying, let's set up this content on this wiki page. So collaboration can also lead to co-creation, and this idea that you can actually build something together even though you're not face-to-face. This is an image by one of our Flat Classroom certified teachers, Emily McCurran, who's the head of Global Education or Global Centre, the Global Centre at the Punahou School in Hawaii. And she talks about, creating and working with, where you're bringing in and looking in and then looking out and going out. So, having these skills to be able to do all of this, which will lead to co-creation. So very briefly, they were the three ingredients to flatten your learning: connection, citizenship, and collaboration. So any questions at this stage before I go any further? I'm just going to go off mic for a minute, just a few seconds. If anyone wants to comment or ask any questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat or even come onto the microphone. No, you don't have microphones. If you put your hand up, I could give you the microphone. Any questions? Okay, let's keep going then. All right, so let's have a look at this. And this is just some things. Oh, great. Thanks, Jackie. Okay. I'll keep going. These are some things to think about, when we're talking about collaborative community learning, flattening the classroom walls, We're talking about being holistic, and we're talking about being global. And just some ideas here for you to think about in terms of really collaborative community learning. Flat learning is, or it does involve all of those other bubbles. It involves blended learning, and flipped classroom, of course, is a form of blended learning. It's interconnected. It involves a culture of sharing, and it's project and challenge-based, project-based learning, challenge-based learning. So you need to think about, what are the leadership skills that people need to be able to lead students through community and flat learning. What Web 2.0 tools do we need? What do we need to think about in terms of global project design? And what is the essential pedagogy? And I think the pedagogy, we've already looked at the recipe, the 3 ingredients to get started there as well. So once again, I haven't got time to cover all of this in this presentation, but let's see what else we can look at. I wanted to look at the tools actually in particular, because I said I was going to do that. So when you're planning a collaboration, when you want to reach out and say, well, look, let's work together. We're doing this topic. It might be environmental awareness. It might be water, access to clean water around the world, or access to water in general, for example. Just thinking of a topic. How do we build? What can we do to build this collaboration so that we're learning from others and actually perhaps creating something together? So the first thing you need to do really is to build community. So you need to be able to handshake, what we call handshake, and set the working conditions. So you need an environment, and I'm talking tools, you need an environment where you can do that, where you can come in together and introduce yourself, respond to others' introductions, share some pictures, share a little video maybe. This is my learning environment, this is who I am, etc. And typical environments that we use at the moment are Ning, Edmodo, they're 2 of my favourites. Moodle, if you've got some sort of Moodle installation, that works quite well. And of course, schools, I know schools have a range of learning management systems and tools that they use as well. But Ning and Edmodo would work extremely well in terms of a homeschooling environment. Once you've created that sort of place where you can meet and greet and connect and communicate, and this is going beyond email, of course. Email is just the start, but you need to get out of email and put it into a community where other people can see what you're saying. And this is where these tools allow you to do that. So then you can start looking at, well, we're going to collaborate. How are we going to collaborate? And these community building tools may also be good for you to collaborate, but they may not have enough power for you to do what you want to do. So you need to work out what you're going to do together and how will you be organised and what are the co-creation expectations. And maybe you might want to use a wiki, such as Wikispaces, or you might want to use a Google site, which is also a great tool. And that's a good point, Song. Thanks for that. Getting all these people up to speed on these tools. And this can take some time if you have participants in the collaboration who are not familiar. It does take some time. You'll find that the tools do tend to be very similar in terms of, there's a place for you to create your profile so people can go and see who you are. There's a place for discussions or forums. There's a place to share multimedia, and often there's a place to blog, etc., or to create groups. You can create subgroups. This is the group looking at water conditions in Asia, for example. This is a group looking at water conditions in Northern America, etc. So it does start to become more familiar. So once you've got a community building tool, a collaboration tool, then you need to look at, well, what are we going to create? What's the product? And of course, this opens a whole basket full of tools that you can choose from. Many of them, of course, are Web 2.0 tools. And a great website is cooltoolsforschools.com. I'm just checking that that's the right website. I should have put it's actually .wikispaces.com, isn't it? But I don't know. That Cool Tools for Schools gets you there. Let's just see. Make sure I've given you the right URL. No, it's not. I'm sorry. It should actually be cooltoolsforschools.wikispaces.com. Let me just throw that into the window there. Oh, thanks, Jackie. Yes, that's the one. Yeah. Oops, and I put the wrong one in there now. Forget that. Jackie's got the right one. Yeah, Go with Jackie's link, okay? Sorry, in my haste this morning I put the wrong URL there, so we'll just delete that. Yeah, great. And it's great. It has hundreds of tools, and that's really, I point people to that website. It's a teacher who's put it together, a labour of love. I think that website is. It's just amazing. So you will find your video tools, your writing tools, your audio tools, etc., and lots of tools there. So you think, well, we're going to create a video together. How are we going to do that? Where can we publish it, etc. And then, of course, you need to look at tools for meetups. And I'm talking about synchronous meetups, and these are good to start the project. You know, a Skype meetup to handshake, part of the handshake process, and to have meetings throughout the project, but also to celebrate the end of the project. And we often have students actually presenting in this tool, Blackboard Collaborate for Flat Classroom. But there are other tools. You know, GoToMeeting is one. Google Hangouts are becoming more popular now, and they're great to have people in there sharing and talking, etc. So they're the essential tools that you need to think about. I'd just like to, well, actually, before I move into what is the Flat Classroom, would anyone else like to share any tools that they're using or anything else that you can think of in terms of planning to go global and looking at, well, what do I need? How do I do this? Anything else that you'd like to throw in the chat window or share with us? Thanks, Song. Yes, Jing and Snagit, excellent. They are great tools as well for. And then there's that whole yes, Jing of course opens up that whole sort of screencasting idea. Another one, UDL Tech Toolkit. That looks interesting. Oh, excellent, Jackie. That looks great. Thanks for that. And that's opening up with a great tool called Glogster, the opening to that wiki. Evernote. Evernote is excellent. I use Evernote every day. Evernote is part of my workflow, actually, and I have shared notebooks and notes with other people as well, and that's a great way to connect. VoiceThread is also great. I've got a VoiceThread slide coming up as well. VoiceThread is a great audio and image tool. So there are some that you can explore as well. Okay, so just a quick, just in the last 15 minutes, 10 minutes or so, what is the Flat Classroom? So, and the Flat Classroom, just so that you know, is a series of global projects. We run projects from K to 12. It's also a pedagogy, which is what I've been talking about really. It's what we do. We also run live events and conferences, and it's a teacher certification as well. We have a course that people can do to learn how to go flat. So I'd just like to share some of our projects, and more from the point of view of what's working and what they sort of do, so you can understand. So this is our K to 2 project. So these are students sort of at the kindergarten to grade 2 level, and we have a project called Building Bridges to Tomorrow, which is a great little project. You know, we set this project up, and this is just to give you hints. You know, if you want to connect with other people and set things up, these are some of the things that we've done. You know, we asked ourselves questions such as, you know, can young people effectively connect and communicate and collaborate? And of course, at this age, the young age, it does need to be very strongly supported by teachers and other helpers. And, you know, what does this look like? What products can students do, and what activities and structures, etc. Just an idea about workflow. Once again, if you're setting up an interaction, a collaboration, it's a great idea to plan it out beforehand. And often things take longer than you think. People often say to me, oh, we're doing a collaboration and we're going to do it in 3 weeks. And it takes a lot of energy to do an effective global collaboration in 3 weeks. Often, it depends who you have in. If it's just you and one other person, you might have it all mapped out and you know you can do it. If you've got 4 or 5 different people in 4 or 5 different countries, it often takes 2 or 3 weeks just to do the handshake part. So just be aware that these things do take time for people to respond. There are public holidays, there are field trips, etc., that people go on that just interrupt learning, or interrupt learning. Well, they're part of the learning, but interrupt perhaps your plans to do this interaction. So just as a planning process, we usually set it out like this in terms of, we'll do the classroom handshake, get the teachers together, then we do the team formation, get the students into teams, organise topics, look at the multimedia, and then of course start to collect multimedia in terms of the different topics. So that's just the first part of the global project, and that would take probably 5 to 6 weeks to get to the collection and sharing of raw multimedia. Topics that we use for the K-2 project, fairly simple topics, and then topic 7, the view from the window, everybody does that. Otherwise, students get into one topic. They collect multimedia, they complete a final project, demonstrating information to the rest of the class, etc. And we discuss proposed outcomes, and this is just really a discussion slide here. What can we do as a group of K-2 classrooms across the world? And we often have, say, 20 classrooms joined into, say, groups of 3 or 4 from all around the world. And we look at ebook creation, which we've done, voice thread creation, Blogster, and teachers take this actually and do presentations as well. This is just one example, a view from our window. This was created during the pilot project we did in 2012 for this, and an ebook was created where every classroom in the project contributed. For example, this is just a screenshot from part of the ebook. The school from Australia and the school from Thailand, and this is actually a tool called Ublisher. This is a great tool, ublisher.com, that allowed us to put this ebook together. And it's just a wonderful artifact, multimedia artifact that is always there now. You'll find it if you go to our pilot project, which is linked from our main website. And you can flick through it, and people can use this now as a resource in their classroom. So these classrooms co-created this artifact for us. Another project I'd like to mention is the Digitine or Digitween project. Digitween means students a little bit younger, Digitine a little bit older. And it's a digital citizenship project, and it's, once again, it's often the young students' first step into global collaboration and connecting online as a professional learner. So it looks at cultural interaction, of course, and it looks at building community. We use Edmodo. Students research and co-author a wiki based on certain topics, and then they bring that information back to their own community or their own environment and create an action project. So it's a very powerful project in many ways. And just to let you know, this is actually an example of how we organise students into a team grid. And once again, coming back to the homeschooling context, this sort of project, this type of design of project is excellent because students would be slotted in with other students from different schools, different environments, etc., and would be able to collaborate across the world as part of this project. And you can see we have a grid. So, for example, with my little clicker thing here, let's see. For example, students in this team here would be looking at safety, privacy, copyright, fair use and legal, and they'd be looking at from a technical awareness and access point of view. So they would be researching and creating, co-creating content on a wiki to share with others, creating some multimedia artifacts, etc., to explain what that means as part of the project. Another project I'd like to talk about is the A Week in the Life project, and this is for upper elementary level, roughly students aged 8 to 10. And this project looks at, answering this, what are the similarities and differences among children in the world, and how can we connect with each other through our commonalities. And it also looks at, how does our geography, where we live, impact the particular topics that they have. So, just another example of workflow. Once again, classroom handshake, team formation, multimedia collection. We use Edmodo for this project as well. We use a wiki for media collection, and we put students into mixed classroom teams. This is an example of an artifact from that particular project, Poplet. I think it's poplet.com, isn't it? Where you can set up a brainstorm, but you not only do it just with students in your class, you can actually share it to the world. So this brainstorm, which is actually students in a team as part of this project, wanted to plan out their project together, and they used this tool. And this is an asynchronous planning tool. So this took about a week for people in the different schools, different countries to create this brainstorm and then to move into actually making it happen. So that's another great tool. And the outcome of the Week in the Life project is actually team voice threads. And this is actually a bit of a mixed up screenshot, but you can see there are screenshots of 4 different voice threads there. So, for example, this one, the housing team. So the topic was about housing. So students in that team from different schools, different countries, put together some images, and then of course voice thread allows students to talk or to add text to these images. So students who posted the image would explain it. Students, there's a couple of students on this particular slide. Other students would then comment and ask questions, etc. So there's this presentation, but also ongoing sort of interaction. So there's housing, there's leisure time was another one, transportation. That's obviously a picture from the classroom in Beijing, showing the roads in Beijing, and then the environment. These are 4 of the, I think it's about 9 topics that we have in that project. But co-created showcase voice threads is an outcome of that project. And then we have another project called Racism, and we're actually changing the name of Racism this coming week to Global Youth Debates. But it's a way of debating globally. It's a formal debate, but we do it across the world using, once again, VoiceThread as an asynchronous tool to facilitate the debate. And last semester we had students, and I didn't put the countries in, did I? But we've actually got Japan, we've got Slovakia, we've got USA, we've got China, I think, different countries there. So we have students, and these are the debating teams. Thanks, Jackie. Yes, you were. Great. And the topic that we had last semester actually was a social media topic, and students debated that. And we had a whole system where they went through quarterfinals, semi-finals, and then the final debate was actually in Blackboard as a synchronous debate, which was great fun because we ended up having, over the last couple of semesters, we've had China and the USA, for example, having to get themselves into Blackboard for a synchronous debate, which of course means that one of the teams have to come into school at night or be available in the evening to make that happen. But it's a great experience and great fun to see the students challenged by this global interaction. And finally, I'd just like to share the original Flat Classroom project, which we started in 2006, which is still going pretty much in its original format, and this is for high school students. And once again, in the grandmother, yes, that's the one. Once again, we have classrooms come in, but we can have individual students who are being supervised in a homeschooling context come into this project as well. And it's a mashup using the flatteners that Tom Friedman talks about in his World is Flat, with the concepts found in Dan Pink's A Whole New Mind, in terms of learning, ways that we learn and ways that we connect. And what we do, one of the outcomes of this project is that each individual student creates a video or a piece of multimedia, and part of that multimedia must be outsourced to another student. So that brings in this whole sort of communication skills, designing the multimedia, knowing which piece you want to outsource, and being able to clearly explain what you want so you don't get rubbish sent to you, etc. And then of course the final video is put in for judging by a global set of judges that we have, and we do have a final award ceremony to recognise student achievement in that project. So it's a fairly rigorous project, involves lots of communication and collaboration skills, research skills and multimedia skills, but it's a great project. Okay, and finally, how do you go about finding global partners? You know, if you're looking to flatten your learning, where do you go to find them? And this is, you know, going back to some of the first things I said in terms of developing your own personal learning network and getting yourself into spaces and places where you can find these people. That's one way to do it, of course. And here's a shortcut to some excellent resources. So the Global Education Conference is a website. It's actually a NIM where you'll find lots of people, lots of teachers who are doing this. And the conference itself actually runs in November, very similar to this homeschooling conference, but it will go for 5 days, I think, and there'll be hundreds of presentations that you can connect with and learn more about global education. It is, Jackie, it's fantastic. Lots of people from around the world talking about global learning. The Classroom 2.0 network has thousands of people signed up. You're welcome to sign up to that if you're not a member. This is one that Steve Hargaden runs. Lots of ideas, lots of people reaching out saying, I would like to collaborate on this topic, etc. The Global Classroom is one that sort of has USA and Australian sort of organisers, and that's doing great things. I think it's into its 3rd year. IEARN organisation has been going for well over 20 years, and they have wonderful projects and places where you can find people. ePals is another one. ePals.com has another a place for you to find resources. Another one I just thought of, actually, I'm just trying to find it here, is Taking IT Global. That's one of their websites. And I should have put them on the slide as well. But Taking IT Global, tigweb.org, yeah, that's what I just put in there, wasn't it? Yes, tigweb.org, that will get you there. It's called Taking IT Global. It's a Canadian group. And they're doing wonderful things as well. They have thousands of people linked into their website across the world. And then, of course, there's Flat Classroom, flatclassroomproject.net. And I invite you also to come and join our Flat Classrooms community. Flatclassrooms.ning.com is our educator community. We don't actually have any students in that community, but educators who are there collaborating and looking for partners as well. So that's just some ideas of where to go. Any questions at this stage? I'm pretty much finished. I've got a couple of closing slides and then that's pretty much it. Okay. And as we say, when you go flat, you never go back. So when you flatten your learning, you will start to appreciate the power of connected and flat learning. And it does become exponential, and I encourage you to reach out and consider integrating this into what you do. And that's me, and that's the where I live, very close to there, 400 steps from that beach. And please connect with me, stay in touch. If you would like to know any more about flat learning or flat classroom or global collaboration, I'm very happy to help out. So thanks everyone for being part of this presentation. I really appreciate it. And I do hope you're having a wonderful homeschooling conference, and stay in touch. Thanks a lot. Okay, bye for now.